middle path of journalism actually grounds on the concept of emptiness, which was as interpreted by Nagarjuna. It advocates for contentment and balance in the way we exercise or practice journalism. We promote community. We remain committed to the ideals and profession. And lastly, compassion. So irrespective of whether in a story or in a news story, for example, whether we talk about the victim or the perpetrator, I think everyone deserves compassion to different degrees, unconditionally, as Buddhist. So that has been the framework or the 4 pillars on which middle path journalism was proposed. These are some of the ideas that I have collected, or we have collected, that middle path journalism is where extremes will be avoided. More emphasis will be put on the community and the society. News and information are social good, not commercial products. And all the bad negative stories are balanced with good human interest stories on our news and journalism. And the values of news are based on local parameters and not on global standards. And of course, selling desires and dissatisfactions are to be minimized, if not totally eliminated. So this is the concept of middle path journalism. Well, the coronavirus pandemic has, of course, not spared us here in the Himalayas. But I'm happy to report and extremely proud to say that our mainstream media, as well as social media users, ordinary social media users, have exercised mindfulness communication or middle path journalism, that whatever you may call it, into, I think, some of the best practices that we can learn from. And I think the COVID-19 has actually given us the opportunity to practice those ideals, practice those philosophy. For example, the first positive case in Bhutan was an American tourist, but not a single social media users have accused that person. Not a single reporter has written a negative article on that person, on that American tourist, 74-year-old American tourist. There was a lot of compassion. There were a lot of, in fact, there were people, unknown Bhutanese families and monks who have conducted rituals for these American tourists to recover. And in fact, the American tourist recovered and he flew back home. He has written a long letter of appreciation and gratitude to the King of Bhutan. Few more examples. There has been the whole country coming together to donate money, resources, cash, in-kind contributions to the country to fight the coronavirus. And this was widely covered by all the media. And it has been very heartwarming. The third, I think we can also claim to have successfully implemented 100% face mask use. And recently there has been reports both on CNN as well as on Politico.com about how Bhutan has managed to fight the coronavirus, fight the pandemic, unlike many so-called developed countries that have not done very well. And in all these process, I am happy to report to this group that mindfulness communication, compassion, community, middle path were all around. In fact, we had even excess of evidences, if what we call in the social media. And in the social media, all the social media influencers that I know have rallied and come and offered their service directly to the government's Prime Minister's press office by forming a Facebook group to disseminate or help disseminate information. So these are some of the practices of my middle part communication, middle part journalism and mindfulness communication that we are all talking about. So where do we go from here? How do we keep the conversation going? What is the next course of action? The social media, whether we like it or not, has come to dominate the information industry now. More than 80% of revenues in terms of commercial revenues and advertising now are all directed to the social media, not to television, and of course, not at all into the good old radio. So what we see, or what I see, is that the concept of mindfulness as well as the middle part should not be confined to just journalism, but I think we need to expand to the entire discipline of communication. There are two polar opposite impacts or influences. On one hand, we see social media affording empathy, community, compassion, limitless networking. So, for example, here we are doing this webinar on Zoom. We get empathy from people, unknown people from around the world. On the other spectrum, or on the other side, we see growing narcissism. There are studies that shows that depression is on the rise. People feel socially isolated. What I conclude then is that individuals are influenced by the social media depending on the worldview that we grow up with, the actions that we choose to take, the habits that we have formed as we consume the social media, and the intentions that we set. So it is very much a subjective experience and not really an objective reality when it comes to the influence of social media. If we look at all the nouns that I have just stated: consciousness, intents, views, decisions, presence. I mean, these are nothing but all that we have been talking so far: mindfulness, views, actions, speech. And I think these form basically something that our good old Buddhism is taught us. So my proposition is then that while middle part journalism confines into some sort of theoretical framework for the media and journalism practitioners, what we now require is, because of the presence or the omnipresence of social media in our lives, in individual lives, as well as of that of society, even the government, a broader communication perspective needs to be formulated. And I propose what I call the middle part communication. And if we look at the Eightfold Noble Path, we see that 5 of the Eightfold Noble Path actually relates to communication: right mindfulness, right intention, right view, right action, and right speech. So when one is using the social media, when one is engaging in the social media, one has to be, first of all, being mindful. Take a moment to see what you're doing, what you're reading. I'm not advocating for total rejection of social media. As I said, social media is the reality now. We have to embrace it. We have to develop a healthy relation. And these are the tools that I propose: mindfulness, to be present, not to mindlessly, scroll. They call the dead scrolling, not to go into the dead scrolling of the news feeds, but to be mindful. Second, to set the intention. So you have to be intentional. So a purposeful use of post and the why question is what covers in the intention. Then, of course, developing a proper perspective, developing a worldview, because they shape your thoughts and feelings. That's the viewpoint. That's the view, the right view in Buddhism. Followed by action, the right action. Are you responsible for your actions? Are you responsible for the consequences of your behaviors? All these have to be, all these can be useful in terms of engaging with the social media. All these can be useful in terms of really communicating in this new world of technology, not to attack someone mindlessly on the post or whatever you see on the social media, or consume mindlessly. And I think these steps, if we can actually, develop further and teach them in schools and universities, and if the COVID-19 and the global pandemic has taught us, it is that irrespective of which nationality you are from, what race you are of, what professions you do, it is a hard truth that has fallen on us, is that we are all interdependent, and compassion, community, contentment is everything that that is important as we move forward.